Hey everybody, Mr. S. Anthony Thomas. Look, I'm just going to dive right into this really quickly. And basically what I'm talking about is how sometimes you got to take the mask off. What I mean by that is we put on the mask, we try to put this facade on to try to pretend to be something that we're not in different situations. I explain what I'm talking about. Um, I'm a pretty happy-go-lucky type of cat, but I grew up in a tough neighborhood. And one of my best friends who's passed also grew up in a tough neighborhood. And when we moved out to Los Angeles to do our comedy, we're both comedians. We both, like I said, grew up in a tough neighborhood. And when you grow up in a tough neighborhood like he did and like I did, a butt whooping can happen at any particular time. You always have to be prepared because you may have to knuckle up with somebody, whether you want to or not. Because if somebody walks up to you with their fist drawn, I'm like, I'm gonna kick your butt, and they start throwing punches at you. It's not like you're going, excuse me, I understand that you want to have a physical altercation, but I, on the other hand, choose not to. So please, because that's what would happen to you. So you always have to be prepared for that. And because you have to be prepared for that, you walk around with this look on your face as if to say, I wish you would. I wish your punk behind would. I wish you would. And he was a white guy. My boy was a white guy. And he had the white guy equivalent of I wish you would. Now we knew each other. We were close friends. So he grew up in his version of a tough neighborhood. I grew up in my version of a tough neighborhood. We go out to Los Angeles. We're walking around, both of us walking around. And yeah, I wish somebody would. And he's doing his version. Yeah, I wish you would. And so we didn't understand the concept of somebody being nice for no reason. We're doing a job. We're working a gig in Burbank for doing market research for somebody. I go into a place with $100 bill because my check was like $200. And the bank gave me $200 bills. I was just so happy to be getting paid at the time. I didn't even pay attention to the fact that that's what was in the envelope. And I look at them going, what am I supposed to do with this? I'm in my 20s. I'm in Los Angeles, and I was living in Hollywood at the time. You try to go to a store in Hollywood in the 90s with $100 bill. They ain't taking it. You could literally walk in there. It would be better if you walked in with a piece of paper that you cut from a brown paper bag with the number 100 on it. You'd have just as much chance of getting that cash or getting spending that as $100 bill. So I'm sitting there frantic because having those $200 bills is the equivalent of not having any money at all. You're walking down the street. I'm like, man, how am I gonna break these $100 bills, man? Bank's closed now, man. I need this money. See a liquor store in Burbank. And I walk in, I'm going, man, I'm gonna have to buy something, man. It's gonna cost me a lot of money to break this 100. This sucks. I walk in and said, yeah, I got let me buy some so I can break these hundreds. He goes, I'll break them. I mean, my boy looked at each other like, what? He goes, yeah, just give me 100. I'll break them. He took the $100 bills. He broke them, gave me 20s. We need smaller bills than that? And I go, no, I mean, these 20s are fine. Thank you. He goes, no problem. Now, keep in mind, like I said, where we grew up, it ain't like anybody was nice to you or does anything nice for you. Why was this guy so nice? What's going on here? We're both walking down the street waiting for police officers to run. We got them two guys and counterfeit bills, get them, smack them. But no, it was just a guy being nice. And we were surprised by it because we weren't used to people just being nice for no reason, being nice and not wanting anything from it. We weren't used to that because it almost never happened. If it happened, it was such an aberration, we didn't even register it. We get back to Hollywood and we're walking down the street, and I look over and I see my reflection in the window. And I noticed I had to look in my face like, hey, man, I dare somebody. Ooh, if anybody even thinks of trying me, ooh, I kick, ooh. And I looked and I went, why am I doing that? I don't have to do that. Definitely not in Burbank. I don't have to do that anymore. Why am I doing that? Why is this mask on? I called my boy over. Hey, sure, hey man, let me take a look. He goes, what? I said, look in the mirror, in the window. He goes, hell am I looking in the window for? I said, see the look on your face? He goes, yeah. I said, now watch my face now. And I just put it back to normal like this. And he goes, what? I said, you grew up in a tough neighborhood. I grew up in a tough neighborhood. You grew up in a neighborhood where ass whoopings could happen, and I grew up in a neighborhood where whoopings could happen. But we're not in that neighborhood anymore. We're not doing that anymore. We don't have to walk around looking like that anymore because it's stupid. Now we may have to do it when we're back in Hollywood because at the time Hollywood, wasn't as bad as the neighborhood I grew up in or he grew up in. But you didn't want to walk around looking like this. That's basically like, hey, I was wondering if you guys could rob me because that's what that look would get you. Because where I grew up, I remember, I remember I had a bad knee and a bad back because I fell down some steps, and I was walking normal. Pain was intense. My friend goes, "Man, I thought you hurt your knee and your back." He was from the suburbs, and I said, Yeah, I did. Could you not say that out loud? He goes, why? I said, just let us get in the car. And I get in the car and I'm like, oh, he goes, what are you doing? I said, dude, where I grew up, when you're walking down the street, you realize you're always taking a robbery audition. You're trying to pass a robbery test. There's always somebody kind of looking at you to decide whether or not it's worth trying you. It's like, just imagine you watch a nature show and you see buffalo walking, right? And you see the lions kind of sitting in the brush. Now, if they're really desperately hungry, yes, they'll go after a tough, healthy, strong buffalo, the leader of the pack. They'll go after that. But under normal circumstances, they're not looking for that. They're looking for the weak one, the slow one, the older one, the one that could jump on real quick, bite in the neck, and eat them up. If I'm walking down the street, I'm a young, strong guy. But if I'm limping down the street and my back hurts, you think I'm going to be able to put up much of a fight? No, they're just going to walk up, knock me over, and take my wallet, smack me a couple times, and run off. But if I look like regular me, they're going to look for somebody else. That's how I grew up. And he understood. Back to Hollywood. So I'm hanging there with my boy, and he starts laughing. I said, he goes, yeah, man, we don't need to make those faces anymore. I said, no, we don't. So we stopped making those faces. When we got the bird back, we're in our normal happy guy face. When we went back to Hollywood, we went back, and then eventually we just got rid of the facade. We got rid of the mask. We realized we didn't have to do that anymore. It wasn't necessary. So one day, I'm walking from a donut shop, and I've got my little chocolate covered old fashioned donuts, and I got my hot chocolate, and I'm taking it back to my place to enjoy them. And I'm walking down the street, and I'm walking like a happy guy, like a guy that's not threatened, like a guy that's just not worried about anything. I don't have the angry look on my face. It was almost like being in one of those movies where, you go to the movie, guy has a tough time, and then everything turns around and everything's cool, and then the music comes on, everything is great, everything is great. So you're walking down the street. So I basically have that soundtrack of everything is great walking in my head. And I look in the same window where maybe 2 weeks earlier I had to look in my face. Ooh, I caught myself in the mirror and I was smiling. I was smiling. And here's the embarrassing part. I looked and I saw myself smiling in the window, and I literally did this to myself. Now that is just dopey. And I started laughing my behind off as I walked back to the spot. Told my boy about it. He goes, I said, man, you ain't gonna believe what happened. What? I caught myself looking in that same window, and I was smiling. I was happy, and instead I didn't have my tough guy face, and I literally did this. And he goes, I go, what? He goes, same thing happened to me. And we laughed our asses off. Sometimes you got to be able to take off the mask. That's why it's great when you be able to go home. If you have a harmonious relationship with your spouse, or if you have a roommate or friends that you're staying with, if you have a harmonious relationship, you can take the mask off. Having the mask on all the time is like walking around carrying a book bag on your back with 100 pounds of bricks in it. It's exhausting. It's exhausting to always be on guard. It's exhausting. You got to have a place where you can take the mask off. And the ideal situation is to be able to not have to wear a mask at all. No, in today's world, in the real world, we got to have a little bit of a mask on sometimes. But you don't want to have the 100 pounds of brick version of it now, do you? Of course you don't. So just make sure you try to put yourself in positions where you do not have to wear the mask. You dig? Of course you do. That's all I wanted to say. Unk ass out.